Hello and welcome to Kikao, your weekly interactive show that focuses on the big issues on Africa's agriculture. Now this week, we are looking at gene editing, that scientific technique of making specific changes to an organism's DNA. What promises does it hold for the African continent? And are there lessons that we can learn from other parts of the world? My name is Joe Ageyo, and in a short while, we'll be hearing from our panel. But first, let me set the stage for you with some views from around Africa.
Genome editing is one of the additional tools that is now coming up and showing very great promise in terms of changing the breeding landscape because of its precision and the fact that it's faster, it's also much cheaper compared to genetic modification. But more so because it cuts across, you can apply genome editing in all the life sphere sectors, in agriculture, in animal health, human health, and also in industrial purposes.
The innovation you do is you put you modified the variety the farmer is growing. If it is a new gene for resistance against a disease, put it in the variety the farmer is growing. So it is that a new product is developed, because any new product is a combination of ancient products.
The way I look at it, both in application of crops, in the livestock and so on. But for how long are we going to be withdrawn and instead of engaging scientists with these new innovations? So to my message is, government should actually come up with policies that will enable innovations to be supported.
And so the new technologies are likely to be better. They should be regulated differently. And more important, they are in the hands of the public sector more than the other ones. More science labs in Africa involved in gene editing. And if it's not over-regulated, we are likely to get the fruits of this technology faster. It's being done with African crops like banana, cassava, sorghum, and all that, many African crops by African scientists. There's better potential there to benefit even faster.
Let's now join Dr. Canisius Kanangire, the Executive Director of the AATF, with this panel as they delve deeper into this subject.
Recent advances in technologies to control crop pests and diseases in Africa have raised new prospects for improved agricultural production, food security, and farmers' incomes. Gene editing is one such technology that is poised to accelerate the development of disease-resistant crop varieties in addition to other applications in Africa. Owing to the relative novelty of the technology and its potential far-reaching implication, there is need for African countries to establish the requisite regulatory and enabling policy environment in order to tap into the promise of gene technology. On this episode of Kikao, we will examine the state of gene editing in Africa and what can be done to unlock its full potential for the benefit of the continent's population. My guests today are Professor Stephen Runo of Kenyatta University, Kenya, and Dr. Martin Lema, an expert in policy and regulations from Argentina. You know, gene editing is relatively a new technology. And when you talk of it to the ordinary people, there are many questions which surround that gene editing thing. It is a huge animal which is not known. What exactly is gene editing?
As I always say, it is a very specific alteration of DNA sequences, and you're altering these DNA sequences with a specific purpose.
So you alter the molecules in a plant or an animal so that it can have the capability to resist pests.
This happens every day. Alterations of DNA sequences happen every day. In fact, plants and animals and all living organisms must alter their sequences. But this time you're altering this sequence for a very specific purpose, and you're specifically targeting.
It is in a planned way.
Yes.
Yeah, planned and controlled way.
Specific.
Yes,
Very
okay.
good.
For instance, in the past, farmers, breeders needed to wait for specific changes or mutation to happen spontaneously or randomly. So that mutations, that beneficial mutations in plants and animals for agriculture could take years, centuries to appear, or never, because it was random. Now, with this technology, we can do the same thing that Mother Nature does. It's not a technology that does something different. It's the same thing that Mother Nature does when improving plants and animals. But now we can do it in a moment, in a very short period of time.
Now, this technology in Africa, we are saying it is new. What is the status in the world? And here in Africa, have we applied it somewhere?
It's not a new technology. Genome editing has existed since the 80s. And nowadays, there is a new way of doing it using certain technology called CRISPR that make it much affordable and easy. But as a technology, it has existed for 3 decades now. I teach at the university in my country, and I have been teaching about genome editing for 15 years. So for scientists, this is not new. And for governments, for regulators, they have been studying this technology because they knew that it was approaching the market. Regulators all over the world have been studying this technology for more than a decade. So it's not new. Perhaps now people start hearing about it because there are products close to being the market. But not at all something new or unknown for the science or for the government.
So across the world, this technology is being applied for the benefit of the populations in the area of agriculture and probably in other areas.
The advances that are more close to everyday use are those in agriculture. The improvement of mostly plants and perhaps some animals and even some microorganisms to produce better quality, more quantity, more resistant to diseases or to climate change. And that's very close to being in the global market.
This technology seems to be precise and fast to get to the result. Is it the silver bullet that Africa was waiting for to address some of the issues in the area of agriculture for the productivity and production of food, for food security in Africa?
I'll give a very specific example. A very good example that I like to give about genome editing is a very brilliant work that came out from Lena Tripathi's lab. And I like this example because they used, or what Lena did was to get rid of a virus sequence. Viruses should not be existing in bananas. And what Lena did was to remove or inactivate a virus sequence. And that's just one of the examples that I can, but there's so many other examples that I can give that can improve productivity in Africa.
We hear gene editing appear to be somehow new in terms of its application, at least, coming from the scientific environment to the practitioner in agriculture or other areas. And learning from other gene-related technologies, Africa has been has received them with a lot of skepticism. Why do you think Africa should be so doubtful about the use of this technology with all the benefits that we are talking about?
Well, I don't see why it should be doubtful. In the past, we have biotechnology crops obtained by other means, but in that case, the technology was different because there was the possibility of bringing genes from one species to the other. So that technology had much wider implications. Nevertheless, it's a technology that gene transfer technology is safe, it can be controlled, and it's going also to be very important in terms of food security. But this technology, genome editing, cannot do that. It can only do what Mother Nature does, evolution by mutation. So that there shouldn't be any reason if people really get to understand what this technology is about. Let me put you an example to perhaps have a wider context. In the 60s, there was something called the Green Revolution. In one of the main components of the Green Revolution was the breeders found genes that make certain plants dwarf, less tall. And just by doing that, a mutation that made the plants be dwarf would allow those plants, maize, rice, to produce more. Why? Because the dwarfer plants are less prone to be broken by wind or to be broken because of the pests are eating their base. And besides, they had all the energy that they used to spend in growing now is used to fill the grains. In the 60s, breeders had to wait until that mutation to appear. It may have never appeared or be detected. Nowadays, with genome editing, we can do it immediately. So that's the kind of thing we're talking. The same kind of innovations that were so dramatically good in the past, but happened very scarcely in time, now we can have it in very short time in different crops for different purposes.
So there is no problem of safety. There is no good reason to fear. There should be rather reason to embrace it immediately. So let's take a break, and after the break, we continue with more aspect of the practicality of how we use this technology.